I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Tuesday, November the 1st, brought to you in part by Safeguard. Safeguard wants to know, is your dewormer working? Text the word SAFE to 48109 and find out. Plus, you'll also be entered to win a Traeger pellet grill. For more information, go to Merck Animal Health. The Russians backed out. That's not a surprise that the Russians would renege on some kind of a deal that they got into, and I'm not sure what the world has planned for Putin, but I don't think he's really sound anymore, and I think most people are under that assumption. It's kind of a scary deal. We need to probably do something about that. Although we don't want the country, I don't know that anybody else wants to take them over. They'd just like to see somebody sane get in there and take over. But he's not going to give up the reins easily. But the deal that Russia pulled out of is the Black Sea grain deal that they had with several countries that they had struck up here a few months ago. It was supposed to help get some of the grain that needed marketed, a way to get out of Ukraine, because traditionally that grain there helps save starving people in some third world countries, and so they backed out of the deal, supposedly because of a drone attack that Ukraine did on them. Well, they're bombing Ukraine civilians every single day, it sounds like, if you keep up with that war. And I know we're getting tired of that war, and it's they don't even cover it that much in the news. You don't even see all that's going on. Of course, there's wars going on all over the world all the time that we don't know anything about, don't keep track of. But that deal is dragging on something fierce. But of course, whenever we saw the news that this grain deal was pulled back by Russia, your grain soared. Kansas City hard red winter wheat up 53 3/4 cents. Wow, 9.78 3/4 cents a bushel. Your corn and beans were up big too. That makes it tough on the cattle. Cattle still want to go up, but it just makes it tough on them to go up whenever we see the grains drive up. Now, if the grains if they back off of that as we go forward this week, I think the cattle will do the same, and they'll get back higher for the week. But last week, when we saw the big jump in the cattle market right after the cattle and feed report starting out the week last week, we saw your funds, your invested money in your cattle futures, which is the ones I tell you we're trying to entice. We're trying to convince them that we can gain some ground in the cattle market, and I said that we saw strong proof, hard proof, that we're short on numbers and get ready for continued long-term rally. Well, they did get in, and they did see that firm proof, and they decided to invest. And the funds early last week created a net long position for the market to go higher position of 65,700 contracts, net long, because you got them on both sides of the market. We don't see that very often. They're getting pretty bullish on the market, so we hope that we can continue to keep that. But of course, our cattle market was just lower just because of the grains, and cost of gains are the biggest thing that's holding our feeder cattle market back, holding our calf market back, if you can believe that. As high as calves are, the cost of gains and the lack of a place to turn those cattle out are continuing to hold that market back. And you think, gosh dang, it's already well over $2 almost everywhere on lighter weight calves. Yes, but it could be a whole lot better than that. But I told you about some cattle that were sold on Primetime Livestock Video on Monday, right after the regular feeder cattle auction at Joplin Regional Stockyards. I told you about the big set of cattle. They were the Juergens-Myers cattle out of southwest Missouri there. I told you there was 1,620 head in the lot to weigh 925 pounds and deliver this week. And they're 95% black. Yeah, you know, they're not South Dakota one iron ranch good, but there's about as good a commodity cattle as you can imagine, guys. Hardly any colored cattle on them, bought locally there. He had 250 head or more of home raised cattle that he started out with, and then he added these to them to fit them. Pretty darn good kind of cattle, green yearling type cattle coming off grass, and it's about what everybody wants to feed commercially. You know, maybe not for bells and whistles and in some kind of a all natural program, but as good a cattle as you'd want to feed commercially, maybe in western Kansas or someplace like that. But those cattle, 1,620 of them deliver this week, made 9 1/4, pretty much all black at 177 is what they brought on the Primetime Livestock video. That's pretty darn good price. That's higher than your index levels for an 800-pound steer, weighing 9 1/4, coming this week, immediate delivery. What's it going to cost to feed those cattle? From what we see, I think conservatively, I think $1.40 cost of gain is probably the best you could hope for. I don't know how you could do it any cheaper than that, especially if you're doing it in the Southern Plains. But being very conservative and being very simple, figuring in your freight and expenses and things like that on there, let's say it costs $1.40 for those cattle for cost of gain. Well, the cattle themselves cost $1,640 a head. Let's say we put 550 pounds on them to finish out at $1,475, which would be pretty you know, normal there. They may take them up into 15 weights, and they probably are going to have to try to make them come out. But let's say we put 550 pounds on them at $1.40 cost of gain. That's $770. Total add up, that's $2,410 a head. Divide that back by the 1,475 ending weight. Those cattle break at 163.40. Ouch. And those cattle are not, they wouldn't really be considered crazy high. That's the market. That's the market on a big string of cattle like that. But 163.40, well, your April live cattle futures are sitting around 159. That's a pretty good gamble, guys. You know, leaving yourself out there, you know, leaving, you can't cover your whole ass there. You got a cheek hanging out. And it's a little bit scary, but these guys are really bullish on this market. They're bullish on what's going to happen to your board here over the next few months if they can keep getting this fat cattle market higher. But just think about that a little bit, and then think what it would be on some of these big quotes that I get you that are so impressive every day. But let's look at your board on Monday to open the week. That's a little bit hard to look at, but your October live cattle futures went off the board, of course, because we're into October. It was down 360 at 146.77. Pulled it all the way down, but there was very little play in that at all. But I like to stay on your spot futures market right up to the end. But December live cattle futures were down 52 cents. They got pulled down some from the grain pressure too at 152.47. Your back months on live cattle down a nickel to down 50 cents. Feeder cattle, they took it a little harder. November feeder cattle down just a quarter at 177.62, but January was down 92 cents at 179.45. Your back months had a wide range from down $1 to up 12 cents on your further back months there. But like I said, your grains just surged on that news out of the Black Sea there. But corn up 10 3/4 cents for December at 6.91 1/2 a bushel. Beans up 19 1/4 at 14.07. Weighted average on last week's negotiated fed cattle trade out of your 5-area feeding region was 67,300 head. Receipts, that's light. And I think the reason that it's light is because the cattle are just not out there to sell. Cattle that the guys think are finished, guys that or cattle that the packers think are finished. But that 67,300 compared to 85,100 the previous week and 87,200 the same week a year ago. Yeah, your live prices all of last week with the extreme highs finally rounded up after the trade was over, because your packers are getting so lax putting that information into the mandatory price reporting database. But the range on last week's prices live basis was 144 to 155. There were 70 head at 144 and then nothing until 148. Who sells at 144? I don't know. But your market was basically 150 to 153 for the most part. There was 2,900 head at 154. I think, or I know that happened Thursday morning. We didn't get that information until all the trade was done on Friday midday. There was some 155 traded, 1,050 head at 155. Of course, they traded at the very tail end of the week for the guys that had the best cattle and hung out the longest and refused those barely higher bids. But your market was still 152 to 153 in the Northern Plains, which was steady to $1 higher. Southern Plains was $2 higher at 150, but your weighted average in your 5-area feeding region on live steers was 150, 195. That was up $1.88. Heavily influenced by the Southern Plains trade, even though we didn't sell a very large movement in the Southern Plains like we did in the Northern Plains. But dress sales gained a whole lot more than that. Dress sales last week, of course, they take place in the Northern Plains only, pretty much, maybe a few in northern Kansas, but mostly be north of I-70. 235 to 240.75 with a weighted average on dress steers of 239.85. That was up $4.57 on the weighted average of dress steers. That's very impressive. Nationwide, we only sold 85,200 head pure negotiated sales. That compares to 102,850 the previous week and nearly 104,000 the same week a year ago. But of that 85,200 pure negotiated, about 28% of them, less than 24,000, sold with a 15 to 30 day delivery. A few more percentage-wise than last week, but not as many head-wise. They're wanting to buy cattle for 2 to 4 week delivery so they can build their coffers up a little bit so they don't have to get so aggressive in the spot cash market. But people aren't selling them too many, and why would they? But 85,002 pure negotiated, 42,300 negotiated grid, 65,000 forward contract, and pretty big formula sales of 271,200 head. That totals up for a week's movement marketing there of fed cattle, 463,700 last week. We routinely slaughter 510 to 520,000 every week, and we'll get close to that this week. So, they're still short bought, guys, and they didn't have a lot of cattle bought ahead for right now to slaughter. So, still ahead of the game. Light numbers of market-ready cattle out there. Guys, dig in, make hay right now. Like I said on our last visit, you got a month, maybe 6 weeks to gain ground, to gain significant ground. We're still going to be in a bullish market. Everything's still going to be good, but we could really gain ground here for a month or 6 weeks, and it's up to the few negotiated cash sellers to get that. And those guys are saying, why y'all always, hanging on my coattails? That's the industry. That's the industry that the National Corporate Beef Association wants. That's the industry that I guess your total commercial cattle feeding industry wants, because they just continue to do that, and they don't want any kind of change to help rectify that. But box beef cutout values, choice was up 39 cents on Monday at 263.65. Select's down just 3 cents at 234.46. Talk about what else is going on. Join me today here on Tuesday at Beaver County Stockyards in Beaver, Oklahoma. I'm going to make the trip up there, see my buddy Jeff Slatton and several other guys that I know that attend that sale regularly. It's the Customer Appreciation Day sale. And who says there's no free lunch? Free lunch, Beaver, Oklahoma. Come up there, they're going to have close to 4,000 head of cattle. Only got about 8 loads of yearlings. The yearlings are about done, guys. But only about 8 loads of yearlings, but a lot of nice calves. A lot of nice strings of calves. Got a big consignment of reputation quality heifers off an Angus ranch. They're going to weigh, the bigger one, 750 pounds, been weaned long time, 120 days or more there, and sure enough, a load of those reputation quality black Angus heifers there. Somebody ought to buy them to keep. We're starting to see that happen a little more often, but hope to see you in Beaver, Oklahoma here today on Tuesday. Talk about your feeder cattle market, your real-time index on DV auction late in the day on Monday, sitting at 175.18 based on an 800-pound steer cash up through your middle 12 states. That's 10 cents a hundredweight lower than it ended the week last week. So, you know, we didn't see the markets gain that much ground because the board was a little bit sluggish there, but things are still selling very good. If you guys out in the Eastern Corn Belt are looking for some good cattle, check out Virginia Cattlemen's Association, the Abington Feeder Cattle Association's tele-auction sale. It's going to be on Tuesday night here, November the 1st, 7 o'clock p.m. on dvauction.com. Check it out. They've got 20 loads of cattle on there. Be the first spring-born cattle on there to be offered, but you'll like the cattle. They offer them in loads. Everything's right. They've all been weaned. They've all had their shots, and the quality is outstanding. Butch Foster's there, and he's an excellent market man there for those people in Virginia. Let's talk about your big sales on Monday. Oklahoma National Stockyards in Oklahoma City, 6,500 head for them. Feeder steers were $1 to $2 higher. Feeder heifers were mostly steady, and there was a light test on yearling feeders. There's just not many of them left, guys. The calf market was a lot higher. Steer calves $5 to $10 higher. I told you they've gotten some rain in that area, and there is going to be some wheat to turn out on, and that's responsible for that 5 to 10 higher. You go up in the northern plains, of course, their calves sell at a higher premium because of the quality, but the calf market is off a little bit, backing up a little bit up there in South Dakota because there's just been so many of them moving here all at once. Heifer calves are steady to $4 higher in Oklahoma City. Joplin Regional Stockyards, 5,700 for them. Market was mostly $2 to $7 higher. They did say that there was some mixed prices on what few yearling feeder steers that they had there on offer, but they sold a big long string through the ring in addition to those video cattle that they sold after the sale, but had 358 head of steers through the ring in Joplin, averaged 865 pounds at 173 1/4. Talk about your Zoetis stick-out sale of the day. It was Faith Livestock Auction in Faith, South Dakota. 9,600 head of feeder cattle went through there, mostly all calves. Like you see here on the automated marker report, let's look at some of your best tested weights. 1,416 head of 4-weight steer calves in Faith, average 463 with a weighted average price of $235.69. That's awfully good, but it's about $5 cheaper than the same weight group last week on a big run last week. 3,221 head of 5-weight steer calves in Faith, average 553, the weighted average price of $214.16. That was a couple bucks cheaper than last week. 1,048 head of 6-weight steer calves, average 624 with a weighted average price of $203 or $202.99, and that was $3 cheaper. It gives you an idea how high that market's been up in there. How about a couple of heifer quotes? 1,583 head of 4-weight heifer calves, average 462, weighted average price $201.10. That was a couple bucks cheaper. And 1,754 head of 5-weight heifer calves, average 544, the weighted average price of $196.33, $4 cheaper than last week. Give you a few individual quotes. How about Sioux Falls Regional Livestock, Worthing, South Dakota? 189 head of steers weigh 972 at 173 1/4. Big old steers to be bringing that. How about Callaway Livestock Center with Buddy Jack Harrison there? Kingdom City, Missouri, 72 head, 704-pound steers, bring 199 and a quarter. But the best quote that I saw anywhere on Monday, your Macrocin, no BS, top quote for the day, come out of Russell Livestock Market in Russell, Iowa, 62 head of green steers, burning up with condition, 818 pounds, bring 192.75. That's your feeder flash for Tuesday.